Ever since I was a kid, I've been captivated by the magic of words. The moment I first held a pen in my hand, the world around me seemed to disappear. It was just me and the blank page, and nothing else mattered. Over the years, my love for writing only deepened. It became my way of understanding the chaos of life and giving shape to my emotions. Then Emma came into my life, and everything changed. She was, for lack of a better word, the woman of my dreams. Meeting her felt like something out of the stories I love to write. Our relationship was the kind of whirlwind romance you'd expect to find in a paperback novel, brimming with joy and laughter, but not without its share of heartaches. Still, we always found a way to weather the storms together. I thought we'd built something unshakable, a family, a home, a lifetime of memories. But life, as I've learned the hard way, has a cruel way of throwing you off course. My daughter, Olivia, came to visit me today. It should have been a happy occasion, but it wasn't. She was calm and kind, as she's always been, but years of estrangement have carved a canyon between us. I couldn't bring myself to bridge it. When she left, I broke down. I cried like a man who's lost everything. And maybe I have. She has her own family now. She's a wife, a mother, and a damn good one at that. Olivia is everything I could have wished for in a daughter. Smart, strong, and beautiful. And yet, when I look at her, all I see is the shadow of her mother. Those same striking features and that same stubborn streak. So why haven't I spoken to her in years? That story starts with Emma, with her choices, with her betrayal. The last real conversation I had with Olivia was at Emma's funeral 5 years ago. I can still hear the words I said to her, words I can never take back. You're as dead to me as your mother. I didn't stop there. I said the same thing to my son, Noah, right there in front of everyone. Their faces, full of shock and heartbreak, still haunt me. That day, I walked away, holding the hand of my youngest daughter, Sophia, the only child I couldn't let go of. Emma and I met in college, and I fell for her so fast it made my head spin. Loving her felt effortless, like it had always been meant to happen. People used to joke that we already acted like an old married couple before we even exchanged vows. We tied the knot right after graduation and had just celebrated 25 years of marriage when everything fell apart. Our 25th anniversary was a storybook day, the kind of memory you hold on to when life gets hard. It was mid-June, and the sun shone bright over the big white tent in our backyard. Over 200 friends, neighbors, and family members joined us to celebrate. My dad sat with Emma's parents at the head table, while our 3 kids filled the house with the kind of noise we hadn't heard in years. Even the mayor showed up to present us with a plaque declaring June 14th as Emma and Liam Carter Day. We renewed our vows in front of everyone, and I couldn't take my eyes off Emma. She was the center of my world. That night, as the crowd thinned out, I felt whole in a way I hadn't in years. Olivia had just come back from her honeymoon. Noah was thriving in college, and Sophia had just finished her first year. For a brief moment, life felt perfect. But life doesn't stay perfect for long. A few days after the party, I was returning some rental equipment and managed to put a dent in my truck's fender. Later, back at home, I clipped the headlight of a shiny new Lexus while parking. I barely had time to curse my bad luck before a police officer arrived. Turned out it was Ethan, a kid who'd grown up with Noah and played sports with him. Now, he was all grown up, tall and confident in his uniform. Seeing him like that made me proud. He felt like one of my own. Ethan and I got to talking after he finished the paperwork. As he was leaving, he made an offhand comment that would stick in my mind like a thorn. "Oh, and tell Mrs. Carter to stop running stop signs," he said with a grin. "Next time, it won't just be a warning." I must have looked confused because he quickly backpedaled. "Sorry, Mr. Carter. That wasn't my place." I laughed it off, assuming he was joking. "Emma doesn't always tell me about her tickets," I said, trying to ease the tension. "She probably thinks I'd make her walk everywhere if I knew." "What happened?" Ethan hesitated, but eventually spilled the story. "Last Saturday, she turned onto Highway 40 without stopping at the sign. She didn't hit anyone, but she gunned it, so I had to pull her over." "Thanks for letting me know," I said, brushing it off as no big deal. But as I drove home, something about the conversation nagged at me. That Saturday, I'd been at my dad's house all day, helping him with some chores. I even took him to check out a retirement home, though he hated the idea. Emma had told me she spent the afternoon reading, relaxing. I dismissed Ethan's comment as a mix-up. Emma wouldn't lie to me. At least, that's what I told myself. Then, a month later, my sister called to tell me she'd found Dad on the kitchen floor. He wasn't hurt, just confused. That call marked the beginning of a series of events that would unravel everything I thought I knew about my life and my wife. That Saturday, I planned to visit my dad and convince him, once again, that it was time to move somewhere with more help. I'd tried before, and he'd brushed me off, but I thought maybe this time he'd see reason. Deep down, though, I knew better. Stubbornness runs deep in our family. With Noah and Sophia home for the summer, I figured I'd drag them along. I played the guilt card, saying, "You haven't seen Grandpa in forever. He won't be around forever, you know?" They rolled their eyes, but eventually agreed. Emma said she'd enjoy the quiet and use the time to finish her book. On the drive, Noah talked about some girl he liked from his philosophy class, and Sophia made it clear she wasn't wasting her college years worrying about boys. Their conversation naturally led to me sharing, for the 100th time, how their mom and I met. I don't think they cared, but I liked telling the story. When we got to Dad's, he was thrilled to see the kids. I hadn't seen him light up like that in ages. We had lunch, shared stories, and enjoyed the morning together. By noon, he was nodding off in his recliner, so we gave him space to rest. "I'll be right back," I told the kids. "Keep an eye on Grandpa. I need to grab some tools to take down that dead tree in the backyard." Noah and Sophia plopped in front of the TV, promising they'd watch him. I hopped in my truck, intending to drive home for the chainsaw and ropes, but for reasons I couldn't explain, I found myself turning onto Highway 40 instead. As I coasted down the hill, I passed the Holiday Inn. Without thinking, I pulled into the parking lot. That's when I saw it, Emma's silver Toyota Camry. The conwoman license plate made it unmistakable. I parked and walked over, my heart pounding. The car was locked, and nothing inside seemed unusual. I called the house first, no answer. Then I called her cell. When she picked up, her voice was light, cheerful. "Hi, honey. How are you?" "Oh, not much," I lied. "I'm out grabbing groceries for Dad. Just thought I'd check in." I tried the house, but no one picked up. "Where are you?" She didn't hesitate. "I'm at the mall," she said, as breezy as ever. Finished my book and figured I'd do a little shopping. "That okay?" I stood there, staring at her car in the hotel lot. She was lying to me. "Yeah, sure. Just don't spend too much," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "What time will you be home?" "Around 6, she said. "Do you want me to make dinner?" "No, don't bother. I'm probably staying at Dad's tonight," I told her, my mind racing. "I'll send the kids back home. I'll let you know." Her tone softened. "Okay, call me when you decide." I pressed her one more time. "You're at the mall by yourself?" "Yes," she said, without missing a beat. "Why?" "No reason. Just wondering." "Have fun," I said, then added, almost as an afterthought, "Oh, and try not to run any stop signs near the Holiday Inn tonight." She hung up quickly after that, and as soon as the call ended, I heard something, a muffled scream, coming from the direction of the hotel. I froze, scanning the area, but saw nothing. I stayed near her car, unsure of what to do. A few minutes later, a police car pulled into the lot. It was Ethan. "Hello, Mr. Carter," he said, stepping out of the cruiser. "Did you call this in?" "No," I replied, confused. "What's going on?" "Someone reported a car break-in," he said, looking toward the hotel. "I'd better check with the manager." Before he walked off, I stopped him. "Ethan, can you do me a favor?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "Sure, anything," he said. "Can you find out if my wife is here? And if she is, who she's with?" I swallowed hard. "I'll wait next door." He hesitated but nodded. "I'll see what I can do." I watched him drive toward the entrance. The minutes dragged. Then I saw the ambulance pull up. My stomach dropped. Paramedics rushed in and came back out with someone on a stretcher. I couldn't tell who it was. When Ethan returned, his face was grim. "I'm sorry, Mr. Carter," he said carefully. "Your wife, She tried to run through a sliding glass door. She's at county hospital, banged up pretty bad. Concussion, stitches, broken nose. She's hysterical. The man with her left when the ambulance arrived. I have his info, but you'll need to file a form at the station to get it. I couldn't speak, couldn't move. Ethan offered his hand, but I just stared at him. After he left, I sank to my knees, tears blinding me. Somehow, I made it back to Dad's house. I stood in the driveway, dazed, until Sophia ran out to me. "What's wrong, Dad?" she asked, her voice panicked. I tried to say something, but the words wouldn't come. When I finally broke down, she started crying too. Noah came out, confused, until I managed to choke out, "Your mom's in the hospital. You two need to go help her." They stared at me, trying to understand. "I'm staying here tonight," I told them, tossing Noah the keys. Without asking questions, they got in the car and drove off. After making sure Dad was okay, I collapsed onto the couch, utterly spent. Dad woke up and shuffled over, sitting beside me. "What's wrong, Liam?" he asked. We weren't the type to talk about feelings, so I stayed quiet, bracing myself for him to tell me to man up. Instead, he surprised me. "After you were born," he said softly, "I stole from work to buy your mom a dress. I got caught, paid the money back, almost lost my job. Your mom was furious, so hurt she could barely look at me. I thought I'd ruined everything, but one day, she found a job lead for me, hugged me, forgave me. From then on, I swore I'd do better. Maybe you need to forgive, or be forgiven. I'm proud of you, Liam. I love you." He put a hand on mine and prayed silently before leaving. I stayed there as night fell, ignoring the phone as it rang and rang. By morning, I managed to make breakfast for Dad before heading out to the backyard alone. Around noon, I felt a hand on my shoulder. "Dad, are you okay?" Sophia asked, her eyes red and tired. I shook my head, unable to lie. She hugged me, the way she used to when she was little, and we both cried. Eventually, she spoke. "Mom's okay physically," she said through tears, "but she's a mess. She wakes up screaming your name. Olivia and I are with her, but she keeps asking why you're not there." "She told us everything, Dad," Sophia said, her voice trembling. I confronted her. I told her what she did was unforgivable. I told her I hated her. "Don't say you hate your mother," I snapped, cutting her off. "She loves you, and you love her. She made a mistake, yes, but I'm the one who has to figure out what comes next." "Dad, she cheated. She lied to us," Sophia retorted, her anger bubbling just beneath the surface. "She doesn't deserve our love." "It doesn't matter," I insisted, my voice cracking under the strain of everything. "She's still your mother." "But she's also your wife," she countered. "Do you still love her after what she did?" Her question hit me like a punch to the gut. I couldn't find the words. For a long moment, I just sat there, staring at nothing. "I don't know," I finally said, my voice hollow. "I'm still trying to wrap my head around it all. Right now, my heart hurts too much to think clearly." "Daddy," Sophia said softly, her eyes welling up with tears, "I'll stand by you no matter what you decide. I love you." We hugged, holding on to each other like shipwreck survivors clinging to driftwood. A hummingbird flitted through the trees, its tiny wings a blur, and we both fell silent, lost in our thoughts. The weekend dragged on. I stayed at Dad's, barely functioning. Olivia and Noah called to check in, but I refused to talk to Emma. I couldn't. I wasn't ready. On Monday, I called work and took a few days off. For the next 3 days, I sat in the backyard, spiraling deeper into despair. Sophia stayed close, watching me like I might break at any moment. I thought about everything, about the 25 years Emma and I had spent together. No, it wasn't perfect, but there was so much good. The laughter, the love, the life we'd built. And now it was all ash. I didn't want to know the details of her betrayal. The little I already knew was too much. Sophia would bring me lunch, but I barely touched it. A roll of paper towels sat beside me, soaked with tears I didn't even bother to hide. 2 days had passed, but my thoughts were no clearer than they were the moment my world came crashing down. "Hey, Liam," a familiar voice called out, breaking me from my daze. I didn't turn to look. Hi, Emma, I muttered, my tone flat. She sat down across from me, and for the first time, I really looked at her. She looked terrible. Bandages covered her face, bruises bloomed like dark clouds, and stitches cut across her skin. If I looked half as bad, I might as well have been laid out in a morgue. I'm sorry, Liam, she began, her voice small as she stared at her bruised hands. I know it's not enough, but it's all I have. Olivia drove me here because I can't drive myself. I needed to see you. I needed to tell you how sorry I am. What I did, it's my fault, not yours. You didn't deserve any of it. I might have destroyed the most important thing in my life, and I don't know how to fix it. Please, let me explain. No, I said sharply, cutting her off. I don't want to hear it. What I already know is tearing me apart. Don't say anything more. Liam, please, she pleaded, tears spilling down her swollen face. If you just understood why I was weak, maybe you could forgive me. I said no. I snapped, my voice rising. I don't want to hear it. Liam, she sobbed, we can heal from this. We can still be a family. Please, just listen. I said no. I shouted, standing up so abruptly the chair scraped loudly against the patio. I turned and walked away, leaving her crying behind me. In the kitchen, Olivia caught up to me. Daddy, she said, grabbing my arm, please listen to her. She needs you to forgive her. I turned to her, my anger simmering just below the surface. If you think listening to her excuses will help, then you're more deluded than she is. If she needs to clear her conscience, let her write me a damn letter. I can't sit there and listen to her explain away ruining our marriage. I don't have the strength to forgive her right now. I grabbed my keys and left. I didn't know where I was going or when I'd come back. I just needed to get away. The next day, when I returned to Dad's, Sophia greeted me with a smile and wrapped me in a hug. For the first time in days, I felt the faintest flicker of hope. Her smile reminded me that happiness might still exist somewhere, even if I couldn't find it just yet. Dad, she said after a moment, I've decided to move in here with you for a while. You need help with cooking and cleaning, and I need some time away. She grinned, trying to lighten the mood. Besides, I've tasted your cooking. You need me. I chuckled weakly. All right, Sophia, let's grab your things. When we got to the house, she packed her car with everything she needed. I brought my stuff too, she announced firmly when we got back to Dad's. I'll stay in the guest room until school starts. Her determined expression made it clear there was no arguing. Later, I asked her why she left. Her face twisted in anger. Can you believe Olivia and Noah? She fumed. Olivia said you're being childish and need to make up with Mom. Noah said everyone cheats and you should just forgive her and get a girl on the side. Can you believe that? They're wrong, Dad. You haven't done anything wrong, but everyone's blaming you. Mom ruined everything, and she doesn't deserve forgiveness. I let her vent, knowing she needed to get it all out. For the next 2 months, I tried to find some sense of normalcy. I went to work, helped Dad around the house, and taught Sophia how to make vegetable lasagna. Olivia and Noah called every few days, asking when I was coming home. I imagined Emma sitting nearby, waiting for my answer. I'm home, I'd say curtly, with Dad. I don't want to talk about Mom or to her. When they pushed, I hung up. One afternoon, Noah arrived unannounced. He seemed uneasy as we sat on the patio, and I let him speak first. Dad, you need to come home, he said, his tone both firm and pleading. Mom's not okay. It's been 2 months, and she's getting worse. I'm going back to school soon, and Olivia can't handle her alone. Mom cries all the time, barely eats or sleeps, and she's lost so much weight it's scaring us. You've punished her enough. She's sorry, and she's hurting just like you are. I stared at him, my emotions churning. This wasn't the boy I'd raised, the one I'd taught to value honesty and integrity. He was defending Emma, excusing what she'd done. Noah, I said coldly, you're a man now, so I'll talk to you like one. Get out of my house. If you think what your mother did is acceptable, then you've lost your way. Go home and take care of her. I'll decide what to do on my own timeline. I turned and went inside, leaving him to stew in his own frustration. A few minutes later, I heard his car start and drive off. By late August, Sophia had gone back to school, leaving just Dad and me in the house. Olivia and Noah didn't call, and I didn't reach out. In mid-September, a letter arrived from Emma. I opened it, but couldn't get past the first few lines before shoving it in a drawer. I wasn't ready to confront her words. The pain was still too raw. Sophia called every few days to check in on us, always careful not to push. She mentioned Olivia and Noah were caring for Emma, and reminded me she'd be visiting for my birthday at the end of October. "You need to decide what you're doing, Dad," she said. "Sitting in limbo isn't helping anyone." On October 30th, my 50th birthday, I made my decision. Sophia arrived early, greeting me with a bright smile and a tight hug. "Happy birthday, Dad," she said. She had planned the day, insisting we go out for a big Italian dinner. "I'll show you what real lasagna tastes like," she teased. For the first time in months, I felt a flicker of happiness. Dinner was lively, filled with stories and laughter. Even Dad seemed to enjoy himself. For a few hours, I let myself forget everything. When we returned home, I helped settle Dad into bed before joining Sophia in the living room. She had tea, and I grabbed a beer, sinking into the couch. "So, Dad," she began, "have you decided?" I took a deep breath. "I've decided I don't know everything," I said slowly. "I don't understand why she did what she did, and maybe I never will. But my refusal to talk to her hasn't solved anything." I read her letter, and while I don't know if I believe everything she said, I need to hear her out. If reconciliation isn't possible, I'll file for divorce. Either way, we can't keep living in limbo. Sophia nodded, but before she could respond, her phone buzzed. She stepped outside to take the call. When she returned, her face was pale, and she sank into the chair across from me, trembling. "Daddy, Mom's dead." Her words didn't seem real. "What?" I managed to choke out. "Olivia found her in the bathroom," she whispered, her voice breaking. "She swallowed a vial of sleeping pills. She's gone." The weight of it crushed me. Emma, the woman I had loved for 25 years, the mother of my children, was gone. I couldn't process it. The grief and confusion swallowed me whole. Arranging the funeral was excruciating. I tried to remain stoic for the kids, but they knew I was barely holding on. At night, I sat in the backyard, staring at the swing set where the kids had once played and the azaleas Emma and I had planted together. Everything reminded me of her. Her laughter, her warmth, the life we'd built. And now it was all gone. The guilt was unbearable. I hadn't put the pills in her hand, but I'd contributed to her despair. My silence, my need to make her feel my pain. It had pushed her further into the darkness. I never wanted this. I wanted her to understand how much she'd hurt me, not to leave me forever. She had broken my heart, and in my bitterness, I had broken hers. We had both been wrong. The night before the funeral, Olivia came out to the patio where I sat her day. "Dad, are you okay?" she asked softly. "No," I admitted. "Not really." We sat in silence until Olivia finally spoke. "None of this would have happened if you'd come home and forgiven her," she said. "She made a mistake, but she forgave you for your mistakes, didn't she? She told me she couldn't live without you, and your pride killed her." Her words stunned me. My own daughter was blaming me. I hadn't cheated. I hadn't lied. I hadn't swallowed a vial of pills. But I couldn't argue. "Not then. The funeral will be tough," Olivia added. "Afterward, everyone's coming back to the house. Noah and Mom's friends will handle the food. You don't have to be there if you don't want to." I didn't respond, retreating inside to the family room where I had been sleeping. The next morning, I dressed in a suit and tie, bracing myself for the hardest day of my life. The kids were waiting in the living room, dressed and ready. Sophia walked over and adjusted my tie, the way her mother used to. She slipped her hand into mine, her head down, as we stepped into the waiting limo. She stayed quiet, her grip firm. At the funeral home, the foyer was crowded with friends and acquaintances. As Sophia and I entered the viewing room, the murmurs died down, and people parted to let us through. But their expressions confused me. Instead of sympathy, I saw disdain, disgust, even. Few met my eyes. When I nodded to some, they looked away. My boss shook my hand and muttered, "I'm sorry," but even he drew side glances from others. The kids received condolences, but I felt like a pariah. Sophia and I knelt at Emma's casket. Soft organ music played in the background, but whispers behind us cut through. It's because of him. Unforgiving creep. Hypocrite son of a witch liquidated her. Sophia's hand tightened in mine. She'd heard it too. The words stung more than I expected, though I kept my face neutral. The preacher's words brought a brief calm, his message soothing. Emma's friends sang one of her favorite hymns, non-traditional but poignant. Afterward, several friends stood to share memories of Emma, and Olivia spoke last. Her speech focused on forgiveness and mercy, citing how Jesus forgave those who crucified him. As she spoke, it hit me. They all blamed me for Emma's death. The contempt in their eyes made sense now. To them, my refusal to forgive had driven her to despair. At the gravesite, a cold wind cut through us as the preacher finished his final prayer. Each of us received a red rose to place on the casket. I went first, followed by Sophia, then Olivia and Noah. Dad's old work buddy helped him shuffle forward to say his goodbye. It was one of the most emotional days of my life, but the worst was yet to come. Before we left, I stopped Olivia and Noah, my anger rising to the surface. I know what you did, I said coldly. You defended your mother, painted me as the villain, and turned everyone against me. Because of that, you're both dead to me, just like her. Don't speak to me. Don't come to my house. I'm no longer your father. Olivia's mouth fell open in shock, but I didn't wait for her to respond. I turned to the gathered mourners. That goes for all of you, I announced. Gripping Sophia's hand, I walked back to the limo, my father in his wheelchair beside us, leaving Olivia and Noah behind. Few people came to the funeral, my boss, his wife, 2 old friends, and Sophia. That was it. Everyone else believed the whispers, convinced I had pushed Emma to self-destruction by refusing to forgive her. Sophia returned to school after the funeral, leaving me alone in a house that felt emptier than ever. Without Sophia, my life was hollow. Olivia stayed with her husband's family, and Noah returned to school. Neither called. I focused on work to distract myself, but Emma was always on my mind. I woke up expecting her beside me, only to be hit by the memory of her affair. Her letter had revealed that her lover, Jack Morgan, was an old neighbor, and he'd even attended our 25th anniversary party. That betrayal cut deeper than anything. Over time, the pain dulled but never fully left. Olivia had a baby girl she named Emma and later a son, Logan. I never met them. Noah married his college sweetheart, but their marriage ended after 2 years when he cheated, a behavior he'd once defended in his mother. He moved to California, and I never saw him again after the funeral. Sophia kept me informed, slipping bits of news into conversations. Despite everything, they were still my children. My boss became my closest friend, giving me the support I needed to rebuild my life. 4 years later, I was promoted to senior manager in Florida. I sold the house, moved to Orlando, and began overseeing the Eastern U.S. distribution center. I even got another golden retriever for Max, hoping the companionship would ease my loneliness. Sophia graduated with honors and landed a management job in Florida. She moved in with me temporarily, filling the house with life again. But even she was starting to build her own life, and I knew our time together wouldn't last forever. Dad had passed away a year after Emma, leaving me to face a future that felt increasingly solitary. 5 years after Emma's death, I realized I needed a purpose. I couldn't become a lonely old man with nothing but my dogs for company. I returned to an old passion, writing. I started with short stories, a few of which I sold to a local magazine. Then, one weekend, I began outlining a story about the hardest period of my life. What started as a short piece turned into something much bigger, a full manuscript. Writing it dredged up painful memories, but the process was cathartic. When I finished, I boxed it up, unsure if I ever wanted anyone to read it. Still, the act of writing helped me face and conquer my past. To improve my skills, I enrolled in a creative writing class at a local community college. Most of my classmates were young and inexperienced, but I found camaraderie with 2 other seniors. Henry was retired and working on a book about his family's Civil War history. Anna, a widow, had raised 5 children before moving to Florida after her husband's death. She took courses to keep her job and find new interests. Anna and I quickly found common ground. She talked about her life, her family, and her struggles, and I listened carefully, taking mental notes. After nearly 30 years of marriage, I hadn't dated in decades. One day, she realized she was doing all the talking and asked about my story. At first, I gave her a brief overview, but she pressed for more. Eventually, I invited Anna over for dinner, hoping to share my full story. She smiled warmly and said yes. That Friday, I cooked my best dish, vegetable lasagna, and set the table out on the patio. After the meal, Anna leaned back in her chair, smiling. Dinner was wonderful, Liam. I don't know many men who can make lasagna like that. What other surprises are you hiding? I shrugged. Not much. I run the Folks Industries distribution center, live with my daughter Sophia, and have two Goldens, Max and Charlie. My wife passed away over 5 years ago, and I have two other children I don't see anymore. That's me in a nutshell. Pretty boring. Anna raised an eyebrow. I doubt boring is the right word. You promised me your story if I came to dinner, and I'm holding you to that. Instead of diving into an explanation, I went inside and returned with a box holding my manuscript. This is my story, I said, placing it on the table. A novel about the most important events in my life. Writing it helped me work through my wife's death, my family breaking apart, and the aftermath. I haven't shown it to anyone before, but I'd love your opinion. Anna's eyes lit up. Liam, that's incredible. I'd be honored to read it. What's it called? Fairweather Friends, I replied. She chuckled as she opened the box and glanced at the hefty stack of pages. Wow, it's 987 pages. That's impressive, but you're asking for honesty, right? Always, I said. Be as critical as you want. I haven't even shown it to Sophia. It's too personal. I'm not sure she could handle it. She smiled. I promised to give it my full attention. I'll start tomorrow. We spent the rest of the evening talking about writing, the joys of living in Florida, and even shared some laughs over our favorite movies. For once, the Florida weather cooperated, and the warm breeze made the night feel magical. As I walked Anna to her car, she kissed me on the cheek, leaving me feeling like a teenager again. After she drove away, I cleaned up, smiling for the first time in a long time. Days passed, then a week, but Anna didn't come to class or call. I couldn't stop wondering if the book had scared her off. Maybe it was too heavy, too personal. Was she avoiding me? I thought about calling her but didn't want to seem pushy. 2 weeks later, she left a voicemail. Hi, Liam, it's Anna. I'd like you to come to dinner Friday night. My son is visiting, and I want you to meet him. I might have a little surprise for you too, so bring a bottle or two of that white wine we had. Be here at 7. Call me back. Bye. Relieved to hear from her, I called back and agreed. On Friday, I dressed casually but nicely and brought 2 bottles of wine recommended by a local magazine. Anna greeted me warmly, giving me a quick tour of her house before leading me to the patio. A small table for 3 was set with candles and glasses. From between 2 orange trees, a man stepped into view. Liam, this is my son Daniel, Anna said. Daniel, this is Liam Carter. It's a pleasure to meet you, Daniel said, shaking my hand firmly. Mom's told me a lot about you. It's rare for her to be impressed, but you seem to have done it. I smiled nervously. Nice to meet you too, Daniel. I'm sure she's exaggerating. There's not much interesting about me. Anna gave me a playful smile as she placed the wine in the refrigerator. When she returned, she surprised me by taking my hand. Liam, she began, I invited you here under slightly false pretenses. We'll eat soon, but I have something important to share first. It's a surprise, hopefully a good one. Her serious tone made me both curious and nervous. Liam, my son came here today to meet you because I did something you might not have approved of if I'd asked. But I did it, and it's too late now. If you're mad, go ahead and say so. She hesitated, then continued. I read your book. I finished it in 2 days. It was that powerful. I couldn't tear myself away. It's the most inspiring and heartbreaking story I've ever read. I cried so much, especially at the part where you went to live with your father and later when you wrote about your children. Liam, it's extraordinary. I opened my mouth to respond, but she wasn't done. I sent it to Daniel, she admitted, glancing at her son. I knew you might not want me to, but I had to. He doesn't usually read unsolicited manuscripts, but I begged him to make an exception. He read it, and he loved it too. Daniel has something to tell you. Daniel picked up where she left off. Your book is incredible, Mr. Carter, he said, his enthusiasm clear. I work at Prentice Press in New York. I'm the assistant managing editor, and it's my job to screen submissions from new authors. This is the best debut novel I've ever read. I'd love to help you edit it and get it published. I sat there, stunned. My mind was racing, and I didn't know what to say. Anna smiled warmly at me, and Daniel's sincerity was unmistakable. For the first time in years, I felt something new, a spark of hope for the future. Daniel continued enthusiastically, we receive about 100 new manuscripts each month, and my team evaluates them carefully before deciding which to forward to our reviewers. Your book went through this process, and all of us agreed. It deserves to be published. Congratulations, Liam. It's an incredibly moving piece, and I'm confident it will be a winner. I sat there, dumbfounded. My expression must have gone from shock to outright idiocy because Anna's smile widened as she watched me, clearly amused. I couldn't speak. The gravity of what Daniel had just said was too overwhelming. Finally, Anna stood, kissed me gently on the forehead, and said, Let's eat. You'll need your strength after that bombshell. As she prepared the salad, I slowly regained the ability to speak. By the time we sat down for her incredible mahi-mahi, we were discussing the book in detail. Anna teared up at several points in the conversation, and I found myself doing the same. It was surreal to talk about the deeply personal moments I'd poured into the story, now knowing they would soon be shared with the world. We ended the meal with sweet peach cobbler and coffee. Daniel outlined what I needed to do next: edits, promotional efforts, and the potential royalties. You won't get rich, he said with a grin, but the impact of a book like this goes far beyond money. By the time he drifted off in a chair, my head was spinning. Anna and I finished the last of the wine on the patio, the cool night breeze helping me calm down. We fantasized about what it would be like to be a famous author like Stephen King or J.K. Rowling. Though I knew I wasn't in their league, it was fun to dream. Around midnight, reality crept back in, and I knew it was time to head home. As Anna walked me to my car, she leaned in and gave me a deep, lingering kiss that stirred emotions I hadn't felt in years. It was as if she had reached into my soul and reignited something I thought had been extinguished. It reminded me that I may be 55 years old, but I wasn't dead yet. Still, the memory of Emma crept into my mind, making me sad. For the next 3 months, I worked tirelessly with Prentice Press to revise and polish my manuscript. My editor, an experienced and patient woman, guided me through the process. The first challenge was transferring my MS Word file into specialized publishing software. It was great for editing, but frustratingly clunky for creating new content. We had one in-person meeting, but most of our collaboration happened over emails and phone calls. As the final deadline loomed, FedEx delivered a printed proof of my novel. I spent an entire weekend poring over it, reading each sentence aloud and tweaking details. No matter how many times I read it, I always found something to improve. My editor had warned me this would happen, and she was right. The process consumed me. I worked full days at Folks Industries and spent evenings revising the book. Sophia was thrilled about my project, but I didn't let her read it until I had a finished copy. She took care of me like a mother hen, making sure I ate, exercised, and didn't stay up too late. Anna, on the other hand, visited only on weekends, saying she didn't want to disrupt my creative energy. We'd go out for dinner or enjoy quiet evenings at my house, talking about anything and everything. No expensive therapist could have done more for my well-being than Anna. Through our conversations, I realized I'd never fully processed what Emma's betrayal had done to me, or what my actions had done to her. It became clear we had both been to blame, each trapped in our own flawed narrative. Anna's presence helped me heal in ways I hadn't thought possible. The night I sent my final changes to Prentice Press, she stayed over, and we celebrated in a way that left no doubt about the deepening bond between us. On May 1st, my book hit the shelves. Prentice had arranged several book signings around the country, and I took 3 weeks off to go on tour. While the idea of being an author seemed glamorous, the reality was grueling. For 28 days, my life became a blur of airports, hotels, and long lines of fans eager to share how my book had impacted them. While I loved meeting readers, the travel wore me down. Anna surprised me by showing up unannounced at 2 signings. Her presence turned the monotonous routine into pure joy. She acted shy and playful, while I pretended to be a world-famous author seducing a local woman. She stayed the night both times, helping me forget the aches and exhaustion of constant travel. Each time she left, I felt an ache where she had been, and I realized I was falling in love. I hoped she felt the same. The last stop on my tour was in Ellicott City, Maryland, my old hometown. I'd asked Prentice to make it the final event, and they graciously agreed. The bookstore was familiar, just a few miles from where I'd lived with Emma and the kids. The event was set to start at noon and last until 4. When I arrived, I was taken aback by the sight of a long line of people already waiting. The staff had set up a table covered with 50 neatly stacked copies of my book and a large poster with my photo and details about the signing. Seeing my face on that poster, in my hometown, brought a wave of emotions I wasn't prepared for. It was as if the past and present were colliding, forcing me to confront all I'd left behind. I scanned the growing line and recognized a few familiar faces. First in line were my former boss and his wife. Seeing them brought a wave of nostalgia, and I immediately went over to give them both a hug. We exchanged phone numbers, addresses, and email addresses, promising to reconnect and have dinner soon. I was so happy to see them that I almost forgot about the line forming behind them. As the signing began, I greeted each person warmly, smiling and chatting as I signed their books. A few people asked for pictures, which I happily obliged, stepping out from behind the table. To my surprise, it was an overwhelmingly positive experience, better than I'd expected. The people I spoke with seemed genuinely touched by my book. About 30 minutes in, one of my old friends approached. He'd been one of those people at Emma's funeral who had avoided looking me in the eye. Now, he held my book out for me to sign. I smiled and signed it, then extended a handshake, hoping to bridge the gap. To my surprise, he leaned in and said quietly, "I'm sorry for the way I treated you. I didn't realize, until I read your book." Without waiting for a response, he turned and walked away, his shame palpable. Apologies like his came from several others throughout the day. People I had once called friends, but who had judged me harshly after Emma's death. Their words left me humbled and somewhat embarrassed. I hadn't expected such a flood of reconciliation, but it was cathartic. The most surreal moment of the day came when Grace Morgan approached. She walked up with an awkward grin, holding a copy of my book. "Hi, Liam," she said. "I know it's strange to see me here after everything, but I wanted to meet you and offer my sympathy. I can't apologize for what Jack did, but I can tell you this. I kicked him out shortly after Emma died. We've been divorced for 4 years now, and I'm engaged to a contractor from Annapolis." She hesitated, then added with a sly smile, "Oh, and you might have heard a rumor that you were looking for Jack to exact some revenge. Well, that was me. I started it. It must have scared him, though, because he quit his job and moved to Saudi Arabia. I haven't seen him since." I stared at her, speechless. After a moment, I took the book she was holding and wrote, "To Grace, no fair-weather friend. I hope my words bring you the peace I found. Thanks for listening, Liam." When I handed it back, she surprised me by leaning in for a hug. "Thank you," she whispered. Then, she walked away, leaving me both shaken and relieved. As the signing neared its end, I glanced up and froze. Olivia was standing by a book rack, watching me. Her expression was subdued, unreadable. I tried to catch her eye, but she turned and walked away before I could say a word. I stood up, scanning the store, but she was already gone. Last in line was Sophia. She greeted me with a big hug, and we made small talk as she walked me to her car. She drove me back to my hotel, no, not a Holiday Inn, and we spent a long time talking about Anna. Sophia admitted she liked Anna and hoped I did too. When I told her I thought I was in love with Anna, she threw her arms around me and sobbed into my shoulder. Her reaction caught me off guard. "I just want you to be happy again, Daddy," she whispered. At that moment, a police car pulled up nearby and flashed its headlights. Sergeant Ethan stepped out, grinning. He tapped on the window, and we rolled it down. "Liam Carter, in the flesh," he exclaimed. We had a mini reunion right there in the parking lot, talking, laughing, and catching up. I handed him a signed copy of my book, inscribing it, "To Ethan, meeting you changed my life. No offense, Liam." After Ethan left, Sophia and I went to the house for dinner. Returning to my old hometown hadn't been as traumatic as I'd feared. A few weeks later, there was a knock on my door that shocked me. Anna and I had just finished breakfast and were discussing the New York Times bestseller list. Fairweather Friends was ranked third in nonfiction. When I opened the door to find Olivia standing there. "Hi, Daddy," she said hesitantly. "How are you?" I stared at her, caught off guard. "Hi, Olivia. I'm fine. What are you doing here?" "I was in the neighborhood and thought I'd stop by," she replied, avoiding my gaze. "This neighborhood is 900 miles from yours," I said, raising an eyebrow. "That's a bit out of the way, don't you think?" Before Olivia could answer, Anna appeared behind me. She placed a firm hand on my shoulder and said, "Would you like to introduce me, Liam?" "Anna, this is my daughter Olivia," I said awkwardly. Anna immediately stepped forward and hugged Olivia tightly. "Come on in. I've heard so much about you." The two of them walked to the living room, chatting like old friends. I stood there for a moment, stunned by Anna's ease, before resigning myself to cleaning the kitchen while they talked. Every time I passed by the living room, they were laughing, giggling, or sharing photos. Anna oohed and awed over pictures of Olivia's kids. After a while, Anna called out, "Honey, come join us." I sighed but complied, sitting next to her. She grabbed my hand, more to keep me from escaping than out of affection. Olivia's eyes lingered on our clasped hands, and the room fell into a tense silence. After what felt like an eternity, Anna broke the silence. "Okay, since neither of you wants to speak, I'll do it. Liam, I invited Olivia here because she has something to say. I knew you wouldn't invite her yourself, so I took the liberty. If you want me to keep being a guest in your house, you're going to sit here and listen." Her words left no room for argument. My gaze darted between Anna and Olivia. I didn't want another confrontation, so I leaned back and braced myself for whatever was coming next. "Dad, I came to see how you're doing. That's no lie. But I also came to apologize." Olivia's voice trembled, her eyes darting away from mine. "I was wrong about so many things, especially about you. For years, I blamed you for everything that happened to Mom, to Noah, and to me. I thought it was all your fault." I stayed silent, watching as she fought to find the right words. "It wasn't until I read your book that I started to see the truth," she continued. "I only saw my version of what happened back then, but your book opened my eyes to your side. For the first time, I understood how hurt you were. I felt so foolish reading your words, realizing how much pain you carried. I guess I never thought you had feelings. You barely expressed them when we were little. But your book, it showed me everything." Her voice cracked, and she took a shaky breath. "To me, you always seemed so strong, so confident, like nothing could touch you. I didn't realize that was a mask you wore to protect yourself, and maybe us. But Mom, she broke through that shield, didn't she? She hurt you in ways I never understood." I glanced at Anna, who gave me a supportive nod, urging me to keep listening. "For years, I thought if you had just been strong enough to forgive her, everything would have been fine," Olivia admitted, her voice softening. "But now I see, you were strong. Strong enough to walk away from the woman you loved for 25 years to protect all of us from her mistake. I didn't give you the credit you deserved, Dad. I abandoned you when you needed me most. And I told everyone it was your fault." Tears spilled down her cheeks as she continued. "After Mom died, I told people she died because of what you did. I was so wrong. I realize that now. I've started to correct my mistakes. I bought copies of your book and gave them to your and Mom's old friends, asking them to read it. I told them you didn't do anything wrong, that you were hurt more than anyone could imagine." She hesitated, wiping her eyes. "I saw you at the book launch a few weeks ago. I wanted to come over and hug you, but I didn't have the courage. That's why I'm here today, to say I'm sorry and to ask you to be part of my life again. It's been over 5 years, Dad. You've never met your grandchildren. They're 2 and 4 now. I want you to come home. I want you to be my father again. I don't want to be dead to you anymore. I love you, Daddy. I need you to love me again." Olivia's voice broke as she finished, and she lowered her head, sobbing quietly. A prick of guilt pierced my heart. I glanced at Anna, who was watching me closely, waiting to see how I'd respond. My mind raced, conflicted. I needed more time to think. "What about Noah?" I asked, stalling. "How does he feel about me? Did he know you were coming here?" Olivia sniffed and wiped her nose. "Noah? He's a mess. I think what Mom did hurt him the most. After Chloe caught him cheating and divorced him, he moved to California and started living recklessly. He's been bouncing from one girlfriend to another, even dating a married woman. When her husband found out, Noah skipped town to avoid the fallout. He still thinks everyone cheats and that it's normal. No, he doesn't know I'm here, and honestly, I don't care what he thinks." Her bitterness gave me a moment to collect my thoughts, but I still wasn't ready to commit. "Olivia, what are your plans now?" I asked. "Are you staying in town?" "I'm staying with Sophia for a couple of days. She wanted me to see her new apartment before I head home." I nodded slowly. "All right. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll think about everything you've said and let you know what I decide." "That's the best I can do right now." Olivia gave me a weak smile. "Honestly, I didn't even expect this much. Thank you, Dad. I'm going to see Sophia now." She turned to Anna. "It was nice to finally meet you. I hope to see you again soon. Take care of my dad for me." As suddenly as she had appeared, Olivia was gone, leaving me with a whirlwind of emotions. I turned to Anna, who took my hand. "You're not alone in this," she said gently. "We'll figure it out together." When Anna and I returned from our Caribbean cruise, a gift from Prentice Press after Fairweather Friends hit #1 on the New York Times bestseller list, we flew straight to Maryland. It was time for me to meet my grandchildren. Olivia's children, now 2 and 4, were bundles of energy. Seeing them for the first time brought a lump to my throat. I couldn't help but think about all the moments I'd missed. Anna, with her years of grandparenting experience, gave me valuable advice and helped ease me through the awkwardness. We spent a week in Maryland, creating new memories and repairing the bond between father and daughter. The best moment came at dinner with Olivia's family. As we passed around plates of food, I cleared my throat and made an announcement. "Anna and I have decided to get married." Olivia's face lit up with joy. "That's wonderful, Dad." "We made the decision on the cruise," I said, smiling at Anna. "Sophia already knows. She's been helping plan the wedding." After leaving Maryland, we visited Anna's children to share the news. They welcomed me warmly, and we began building a new family together. Life hadn't turned out the way I thought it would when I was young. Back then, I believed in fairy tales, that love was forever and heartbreak was something that only happened to other people. But life isn't a fairy tale. It's messy, unpredictable, and real. I had 25 good years with Emma, and now I look forward to spending the next 25 with Anna. Maybe one day, I'll write another book, something about love, loss, and finding happiness again. Grow old with me. The best is yet to come. Our times are in his hands. Robert Browning was a smart man.